Hey everybody, this is Dave Cooper, and we are at BCMC and the National Framers Council, and standing with me is Chris Tatge, owner of Dynamic Construction, who is the largest framing contractor in all of Wisconsin. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
I think this is great. Tell us a little bit about who you are and how you became the largest framing contractor in Wisconsin, and then I want to jump into what really is the NFC.
5-6 years ago, I always thought that the pinnacle of success for a framer was running a crew with 20 guys wearing a tool belt and pounding out multifamily buildings. I got involved with the National Framers Council, and I met a lot of other framers from the East Coast, Texas and California, who had become real businessmen. They had found a way to create careers for themselves and grow their companies beyond the job site. And so I started learning from them. What are they doing? What can I do to mimic that? And what can I bring into my company to grow it? The biggest piece is, of course, the lumber, right? Turnkey framing contractors have been really successful because we want that control of all the parts and pieces coming to our site. And so since I've done that, it's really streamlined our process and helped our labor to be successful in the field.
So you've gone from just providing the labor and the framing of all the skill that's needed for these job sites to also supplying the lumber. What kind of hurdle was that to get into the industry?
Lumber's a relationship business.
Yeah.
You have to know the right people and to bring it in and make it work. There were not any other turnkey framers in Wisconsin, and so my model was very new to our market. It took me about 1.5 years of making phone calls and sort of casting the vision for what my business could be and selling these vendors on what is the future of lumber delivery for multifamily. Right. After working all that and learning a few things the hard way, we finally kind of got our groove and we started becoming successful.
Yeah, and part of that success is through the National Framing Council, in which we were talking about earlier. Why don't you tell us a little bit, what is the National Framers Council and what has it done for you?
So the National Framers Council is a group of framers from across the country, mostly professional framing contractors. So guys who are framing anywhere from 200,000 square feet to 12 million square feet a year. It's a group of guys who originally George Hull started the NFC to bring some professionalism to the industry, to see what we can learn from each other, see how we can improve things. And so that's sort of the goal and the focus.
Sure. So what have you gotten out of it?
I've gotten a great education. You imagine that you can get into a room with a guy who's framing 5 million square feet a year as somebody who thought that 300,000 square feet was a lot, right? And I'm getting tips from that guy. When I decided to do the lumber thing, I called George Hull, I called Kenny Shiflett, I called Bruce Jones, some really big names, and they all gave me their time. They all gave me 1 hour, 2 hours on the phone to give me notes, right? And so I get those great collegial relationships. I get friends who I can come to whenever I have problems. That's a big part of it.
So with the SBCA and the NFC, what is the relationship there? And what value are these two organizations, what are they bringing to everybody?
The National Framers Council is a council of the Structural Building Components Association.
Yep.
Structural Building Components Association, of course, wall panels, roof trusses, floor trusses. And so what's really neat about the relationship is the SBCA comes to us and says, what's the framer's perspective on this? How is this going to affect you on the job site? What can we do to make you guys more successful? And in the same turn, we can go to the SBCA and say, hey, here's what we see on site. Here's what's practical. Let's set some standards that work for all of us. The best example is probably the BCSI document, Building Component Safety Instructions. How do you install roof trusses safely, right? The way you install them safely and the way a framer wants to do it, right? It's a little bit different.
Yeah, sure.
And so where's the common ground? What can we find to work together to ensure the safety on the site in the truss erection process and do it fast?
What would you say to somebody out there that's not involved, that doesn't really understand the value of the NFC or SBCA? somebody that like yourself, you kind of came into it, right? And then you started learning and growing. What advice would you give some folks out there that are still out there doing it without being part of these organizations?
In the last 3 years, I've grown my business by 800%. And most of that credit goes to the relationships I formed through the National Framers Council and the Structural Building Components Association. If you want to take your business to the next level and you want to understand what other people are doing in other parts of the country, coming to events like this, there's no substitute for it. You can learn from everybody.
Yeah, you definitely can. So there you have it, everybody. We are at BCMC. National Framers Council as well is going on right now. I got Chris Tatge sitting here. He grew his company 800%. Get involved is what I'm learning here. Chris, thanks so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. There you have it, everybody. I'm Dave Cooper. We'll see you next time.